afternoon and good morning to our Western guests today. Welcome to the July episode of ISSA Canada's Coffee Talk Forum. Today, we will begin part one of a series on a topic that is very much top of mind right now, mental health. Let's face it, there has been a lot of media play regarding mental health issues and eliminating the stigma associated with it. But the reality is, many people do suffer in silence because they feel any admittance of mental health issues would be frowned upon. The past 2 years haven't helped. The pandemic has certainly brought about undue stress to many in terms of upended workplace routines, transitioning to home offices, dealing with children or elderly parents while still trying to work, or being a frontline worker with extended hours and an expectation to combat an unseen enemy. Every day for the past 2+ years brought new challenges to the point where nobody knew what tomorrow would look like. To say it's been a stressful time may be a bit of an understatement. Here we are in 2022, and although things are slowly starting to go back to normal, I think many of us carry around some PTSD when it comes to the pandemic. Call it what it is, but all of us have been affected in one way or another, whether it be physically, financially, or psychologically. Today, we have some familiar industry guests who will discuss their personal journeys over the past 2 years to not only support themselves in terms of mental health, but in some cases, their employees as well. Representing the distributor supplier segment of the industry, we have Shannon Hall, Vice President of Sales for Dustbane Products Ltd, Tom Fournier, owner of Shades Mills Group. Representing the facility service sector, we have Amanda Habiak, mental health consultant at the University of Calgary. And last but not least, representing the residential cleaners is Judith Virag, owner of Clean Club Calgary. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that this conversation is meant to be interactive. And if you have something to add to the conversation, I encourage you to do so. At the end of the day, we've all got to be here together and support one another. Raise your hand, comment in the chat, or simply chime in. It all works. So let's get going. Mental health. When you hear statistics such as 1 in 5 people in Canada will personally experience a mental health problem or illness, and approximately 8% of adults will experience major depression at some time in their lives, you realize the importance of nurturing your mental well-being. Recent news headlines even told us that singer Shawn Mendes canceled some tour dates to focus on his mental health. It is a big deal. So I pose the questions to our guests today. What does mental health mean to you? Is it a top of mind or an afterthought? Shannon, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. So it's absolutely top of mind for myself. I've had a number of family members that have experienced different mental health challenges. But as we start to think about stress, often we don't associate stress as being something that's relevant when it comes to your mental health. We think of that as generally something that's a diagnosed mental health concern. So when I think about my team and the team members that we have, it's absolutely top of mind. And we're always looking for different ways in which we can support our team members and open up the discussion to make sure that it is top of mind, not just for the leadership team, but for everybody on our team, and recognizing some of those areas of opportunity or triggers that we have that may create additional stress or help us relieve it.
There you go. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, similar to Shannon, I'd say top of mind. I've had people very close to me that have encountered problems with mental health, some with some rather severe consequences. So it's something I'm very aware of. And if I can add something, I think especially managing a team or a work environment, that then, there's, I'm not sure how to characterize it personally, where it is a health issue and someone needs support, but then there's also I think you have to be conscious of periodic events. Someone's had a relationship breakup, there's something happened in their personal lives, and they're grieving, and they need support too as they work through these things.
Yeah. How about Amanda?
Excellent. Absolutely top of mind. It's a dimension of wellness we all have. It's fluid. It's able to shift. It's neither good nor bad, but always flowing. Our mental and physical health are never linear. We have good days and bad days and some days in between, right? And there are days where I feel less grounded than others. But good mental health for me is really a feeling of stability, a feeling of groundedness, lightness, when I feel in that kind of that mind-body connection space. And when I have good mental health, I feel better able to cope with the natural stresses of the day. Shannon mentioned, stress is a normal part of our day. When stress becomes cumulative or becomes in the kind of the realm of distress, then it's not good for our health. But I allow myself the permission to not have good days some days.
Very good. Judith?
Yeah, so for me, it's definitely what Amanda was talking about is how I manage the stress. That's what it means to me. And in my line of work, and I think in any entrepreneur, you can go very quickly, like just by opening a door, you have to put on a different face because you've been in a very difficult situation, but you're going into a very good situation. And so for me, it's how I manage the stress, and definitely top of mind, especially when I manage my team, because they might have different stresses during the day. And I think a quality of a good leader is how I support my team in that. So how available I am if they have something happening. So I try to be very available.
So Amanda, I actually liked what you said there in terms of everybody deals with stress, but when it gets to a point of distress, that it could be a contributing factor. So with that said, how do you deal with stresses and de-stresses in that sense? Shannon?
It's been interesting. The last almost 3 years now have been very different than any other time in my career anyways, and in most of our lives. Watching what my team was going through was very interesting to see the shift from being out in front of customers. Now, everything that we were doing was on Zoom, which created a new level of anxiety and stress that you don't anticipate. So some of the ways that I help manage that, not just with myself, but with the team, was one, when we had our national sales meeting, we got everybody adult coloring books. As silly as that sounded, it was adult coloring books with their favorite chosen words that might be in it. And each of them colored their picture and they put it up and they talked about why they chose that picture with that saying on it, and really started to get into the personal discussion around what's really happening in our lives when our kids are at home with us, our parents are sometimes at home with us if they were snowbirds, and how are we coping with everybody working in the same household, using up all the broadband, and in the middle of the call, things are shutting off. There was a lot of anxiety and things that were going on along those lines. I found myself also shifting where I was living. So, living at our house most of the time, or 50% of my time used to be in hotel rooms. And now all of a sudden I'm home all the time. I started to go to the cottage a lot earlier in the week and spending time there in the winter time, just looking at the lake and taking in the scenery and getting out and doing different activities that I wouldn't have normally done was really helping me deal with some of that. But my favorite thing was I went back to my voice lessons, and getting out on stage was a big deal for me. It was always something I used as a stress reliever. So enter COVID, now I wasn't able to get out. So I had voice lessons with my old voice teacher, and I would just sing to him. It was fun and entertaining and really did help.
Interesting. Wow. Amanda, how about you?
I don't know if better or worse. I was on mat leave for the first year of the pandemic.
Jeez.
Had a baby and got locked, isolated.
Wow.
It was an interesting time. Really, I've learned to set boundaries. And it hasn't ever been a journey to be able to do that, and to realize in my role too is I can have empathy. I can have empathy for the experience of others, but I don't necessarily need to absorb it. I can validate, and I feel always very humbled to be invited to walk alongside people's journey, and be able to listen fully and completely. But setting boundaries and knowing that we're all feeling beings. When I start to feel something, I've really learned over the past years to lean into that feeling, and to not necessarily push or avoid it or push it away. And try to understand, okay, what is the meaning behind the feeling, and what's contributing to that. So it has been a journey. I am still on this journey, but I'm a big advocate for self-compassion, and I'll talk a little bit more about self-compassion, but providing yourself the permission to do things that give you a sense of groundedness and wholeness. Yeah.
So in terms of triggers, Judith, do you recognize your triggers when it comes to stress?
It's a very interesting question, because sometimes you're so much in the moment that you don't actually realize that you were triggered, and you're ripping your hair out. But I try to reflect. And then also what I kind of learned, and I think this kind of comes with age, is how hydrated I am, and when have I eaten, what have I eaten. Sometimes it really, really depends on how I react to certain things. I'm pretty even person, so it's really hard to, get me out of my groove. But there have been situations where I had to kind of, step back and say, oh, whoa, I shouldn't have reacted that way. And I think my strategy for that is just always, being humble and saying sorry and talking it through. If I feel that I maybe hurt somebody's feelings, or I didn't respond the way I should have responded, I think it's always just going back, reflecting, and if something you think wasn't right, just admitting to it and apologizing.
How about you, Tom? You always seem so level-headed and calm. Like, do you ever have that point, those triggers that just kind of push you to the edge?
Yeah, for me, I guess self-awareness. I know fatigue, if I'm tired or run down, and then maybe volume of work. Those are the things that can drag me down. So self-care is important. Trying to get enough sleep. I try to incorporate daily exercise into my routine. I'm older now, so I can't run, but I'm a big advocate of a long morning walk, and that's kind of also my time to sort things out. I just listening to some music, let my mind run free, and unconsciously, I guess I'm problem solving without even thinking about it. So, yeah, I think, and then prioritization, and just maybe with enough experience, you understand what are the things that need extra attention, that are worrisome, and which other ones perhaps you can just clear off your desk and they're not of consequence.
Interesting. So would you say that the events of the pandemic have adversely affected you in terms of your mental health? Like, have you been able to adjust to the new normal? I asked you that, Tom.
I would say yes, it has impacted. Of all times to try to start up a business, it was as COVID strikes. So, that's made it a little bit of a challenge, where you count on face-to-face interaction, networking events. And so then, you have to manage through some lulls in activity, and rather than let that get me down, then I've tried to upgrade my skill set, do research and learning, and then also I found I was just making a point of, even if keeping in touch with the industry, reaching out to people, having conversations, and feeling connected. So then that helped. And then on a personal basis, I think the pivot to online activity was a lot more than than just work related. We've had family events, social events, and even a group of friends that we do a monthly Scotch tasting. So, we found ways to stay connected throughout, even if we couldn't physically be together. So,
wow. How about you, Shannon?
Well, I love that Tom actually had brought together the industry and was having these mini sessions that anybody could jump on this call, have a glass of wine at 5 o'clock and just chit chat and catch up, which I think actually was a great opportunity for us to connect. Having everybody in our office throughout COVID, it was very busy for us. So people didn't really work from home. They stayed in the office, but what that created was you don't go to the kitchen at the same time as someone else. So all these silos and walls started naturally building because we stopped the communication. And I felt for myself, I crave communication. I'm used to being out in front of people. So all of a sudden to always be, it's just me in the training room, or I'm in my office by myself. I was looking for those opportunities to reach out and connect with people. But one thing that I do find really helps is I also like that quiet time. That 7 o'clock in the morning, I like to be the first one in the office because I want that hour before everybody else shows up, just to get some of the odds and sods done, whether it's, emptying the dishwasher and starting the coffee pot and just relaxing into what the day's going to look like, or dealing with people in different time zones, I find is a great way for me to manage some of the stress and anxiety.
Wow, that's awesome. How about you, Judith?
So it was a very interesting 2 years. And what I found that I actually got a little bit stronger mentally, because I started to not to worry about things that were out of my control. So the pandemic was absolutely out of my control. The only thing that I could control is how I responded to it. So that was really, really great. And I really like what Shannon and Tom had mentioned about connecting with other people. I did a lot of connection as well. I moved a lot of stuff online, and I did things that I would have never done before, like this. And I learned this during the pandemic, how to be more open, how to be presentable. And, it's still work in progress. But yeah, I would say a lot has changed, and it opened up my eyes to a lot of online availabilities, still connecting with people. So it was really, really good for me learning wise.
Nice. Wow. So Amanda, as the mental health consultant at the University of Calgary, how do you maintain your own mental health in order to be helpful to those you're assisting?
Absolutely. Great question. It has been a journey. So I can tell a little bit about my role and my background. So I've come from the majority of my career has been working in acute care at the Alberta Children's Hospital, working on the acute care mental health unit, as well as the psychiatric emergency services team. So it is through that journey that I learned when things such as compassion fatigue start creeping up, what that feels like in my body, where it's showing up in my body, where is stress showing up in my body, when is times when I need to debrief, and obviously maintaining confidentiality. I'm blessed and privileged with a very supportive team here so if I need to debrief, I know what it feels like to when I'm at that point where when I need to go for a walk outside, when I need to engage my networks. And when I need to take a step back. Again, I can have empathy, and I'm a huge empath. I am able to be with the people I see. And so in my consultations, I'm a registered nurse in this role. So while we do not engage in therapy, it is an opportunity for us to connect and create safety, to have a very real and very genuine conversation about where this individual may be at along the mental health continuum. So I have anyone from kind of distress in a distressive state to, I'm seeking some resources on sleep, or I've noticed my anxiety starting to creep up in certain areas of my life. Do you have strategies? So that's kind of in a nutshell. But I can't stress enough, work-life boundaries. It's important to me. My team knows that at 4:15 or 4:30, it is important. I shut my computer down. I shut my phone down. I have a network, like I have my backups. Of course, if there's an emergency, but I have a young family, and it's very important to me to set that boundary, to be able to fully detach, to be able to come fully to that conversation again.
Yeah, really. I think that's an important one. I mean, in terms of you oversee a lot of people, whether it be students, faculty, what have you. Like, what are you seeing on campus right now?
I should mention, so I'm mostly staff and faculty. So I am the
Okay.
staff and faculty and postdoctoral scholars, the mental health consultant for that demographic. We are also blessed to have a robust student wellness team here as well, with counseling support for students. I do support grad students who are in teaching roles here at the university. Like I said, the first year of the pandemic, I was off, but I'm hesitant to say, seeing an uptake in mental health issues, but because naturally in times of uncertainty, fear, transition, isolation, fiscal restraint, when one's agency to have control over the decisions of their life, when that is impacted, we are going to be impacted. So, a big message I kind of say is, your reaction is your reaction. It's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. So naturally the calls have been increasing. Yeah. And I actually see this as a very good thing.
Wow.
People have been starting to reach out. I do see the impacts of stress, being overwhelmed. Workload has been creeping up, right? Before the call started, we talked about, working short staffed. Naturally, workload's now going to be increased, and now we're going to experience an impact from that. Yeah. So, in interactions with folks, I really try to validate their reaction and normalize it. And it's helpful for me too, because it's also normalizing my reactions, because I'm also a human in this. We're all humans who have gone through this. And so I'm quite honored to be involved in stories, because it is actually quite helpful for me as well.
So did faculty reach out to you openly for
Yes.
assistance? Yes. Oh,
we are, the numbers have been increasing, which I think is a good thing. With more awareness, I know there's some questions later about stigma, right? We're talking about, when the doors are open and when people feel safe, and that foundation of trust has been established, people are going to feel safe to reach out. Hierarchy doesn't matter. When we are talking to, humans, our fellow humans, I can talk to a senior leader about their mental health because they feel safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, faculty, students, staff, from all avenues and demographics of the university.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in keeping with the shift to the virtual workspace, there's obviously been an increase in the use of social media. So I posed the question to each of you: Do you think the use of social media can be detrimental to mental health, not necessarily for yourself, but potentially for your staff? Tom, I'm going to throw that to you first. Shannon, I know you and we've talked about this before, but I'm going to start with Tom first.
Yeah. I think for everyone, social media can have detrimental effects to their mental health. I would caution, and I guess I did that talk on the use of LinkedIn. So, to me, LinkedIn, it should just be used in a professional or business capacity. I frown upon people, getting political there, talking about other big societal events, and I discovered the magic of mute and unfollow, and that kind of extends to my more personal social media use, which is like Facebook and Twitter. So, for me personally, I try to keep my interactions positive and upbeat. If someone's a troll or attacking people and negative, either I block them, remove them, or at the very least mute or unfollow, and they don't know you've taken action against them, but you just don't see their stuff anymore. So that I found my feeds have become much more positive and constructive, and I'd encourage others to do the same.
Nice. How about you, Shannon?
So I love social media. I use it all the time. And to Tom's point, I think, when you look at LinkedIn as a tool, it really is a business tool, but I do post some personal photos and different things. We're all human. So it's great for your business relationships to know you as an individual and not just the business person that they deal with on a regular basis. But it's also, a place where I think on any of your social media channels, if you see a lot of negativity, then that's going to create anxiety and stress. So much like Tom, I have people I've unfollowed because their feed just didn't match my values, or I was getting annoyed with what I was seeing, or the way that people were reacting to things, that you just needed a break. And looking for happier moments, or following some different feeds that are going to give you some of that lightness and positivity. We do a lot with give meaning to your cleaning here. So I like to make sure that I've got some of the volunteering activities that are part of that can also help you feel better in ways that you're able to contribute and give back and help someone else. So I think there's ways that within helping others that you can use some of those tools to really just keep yourself motivated and in the right headspace as well.
How about you, Judith?
So I would definitely agree with Tom and Shannon. My 2 bits to it is yes, definitely block out the negativity, but the way I like to think about it is that why is that person responding that way? And that's when I think mental health comes in. Mm-hmm. And maybe they are just, in a not a very good now, maybe they would need help or anything like that, especially if it's somebody who's kind of close to you. And sometimes we just have to, agree to disagree and agree that there's different opinions to things. But I just like Shannon, I love social media. For me personally, I have friends and family overseas, so it's great to interact. And LinkedIn for me is such a great learning tool. Like, I go on there and I just admire some of the people, and not only that, but I learn from them because there's so many great quotes and resources about leadership. That's something that I look for example, about team building, about team events, about hiring, about talent management. So I find that as a great resource. Yeah, but I definitely block out any negativity that would come in.
Wow. So Amanda, is social media usage a component to the university's mental health program at all? Do you guys offer any kind of guidance at all?
So at this time, the majority of our messaging comes through our campus mental health strategy webpage and team. Such as we highlight events being hosted on campus. However, when it comes to platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, etc., this is the conversation is currently ongoing about the considerations and what goes into considering having a U Calgary, let's say a Twitter account, one who kind of monitors it. Right, we want to ensure that that folks, if and when they post, and if there's warnings, we want to make sure that these folks are supported as well. So currently ongoing with our communications team. Personally, and over the pandemic, I've really had to set very strict boundaries for myself. Being on mat leave and kind of feeling very isolated, it was social media all the time, and it got to the point where it was very impactful. And I don't know if anyone can relate, but my husband would come home. Did you see the numbers today? And it would just be an immediate heaviness, an immediate feeling of intense anxiety in my body. So it's just like, whoa, I had to set those boundaries. A strategy I used, and I don't know if this is helpful for others, and one strategy that I encourage folks to use is, so I learned through a podcast. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Crisis Trauma Resource Institute, but they have a podcast series, a free podcast series, and there was one on bracketing. Bracketing around social media intake, news intake. This really came out pertaining to the war in Ukraine. I have family, my husband's family is Ukrainian. So really setting bracketing time or intention to, okay, I'm going to watch the news, or I'm going to engage in social media for this amount of time. And I'm going to allow whatever's going to come up is going to come up for me in that time. It's allowing myself the permission to feel it. But I'm going to set that after that time, I'm going to go take a breath and move forward with my day. So that's personally one strategy that worked. Pertaining to kind of the doom scrolling. I don't know if you could do that.
Yeah.
I do that. You're not, not supposed to. Sleep hygiene 101. Don't doom scroll right before bed. That was the thing for me.
Wow. Holy. Has anybody else noticed that kind of concept in terms or adopting that strategy and for, decluttering that stress? I know I personally was an avid news watcher. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I listen to the talk radio over the course of the day, but no, I just stopped with the newscasts at night and turned all my attention to ball. How about you, Shannon?
Yeah, I did the same thing. So I laugh because if you're talking about world events, I'm kind of oblivious half the time these days because I stopped watching the news. It was creating anxiety for me when I was, especially with the convoys that were going on in Ottawa. I had a son that was living downtown in the market. It was creating a lot of stress thinking about, what? We now have sharpshooters on the buildings across the street from where he lives. I need to get him out of the downtown. And at a 20-year-old, he's like, no, I want to stay. This is kind of cool. I'm like, not cool. Get out of town. Seriously, come to the cottage. I'm putting out a Prosecco bar. You need to come to the cottage. But yeah, it was, it was constant 24/7, the news while all that was going on top of everything else that we'd just gone through with the pandemic. There wasn't any of that lightness. So I just found myself saying, I'm done. I don't want to watch the news. And now I watch Grace and Frankie, and that makes me laugh.
How about you, Tom?
Or you can balance it. I reference Twitter. There's a Twitter account called Goodable where they just tend to post positive, uplifting, little clips. Or there's a gentleman out of the Yukon that does Sanskrit, or like I won't have it right, but the dancing. He always has guest dancers with him.
I heard about that yesterday.
Yeah, and then a more recent one. It's blowing up social media. I think she calls her Twitter account and TikTok Echo Sister. She's got a hobby farm. So it's her and her pet emu Ezekiel and how he's always trying to wreck her posting. So they're hilarious things. So I don't know. Sometimes it's balance, right? You make sure that there's positive, uplifting stuff in your feed too, so you don't get weighted down by the heavy news all the time. So
Judith, did you want to chime in there?
Oh, I did see that TikTok just yesterday. It's hilarious, actually.
Yeah, I heard about that one too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
I just agree with everything. Like, I am all for trashy TV because I don't know, people say, oh, I don't watch TV. I'm like, well, I watch TV and I watch trashy TV because it just totally disconnects me from the world. And not only that, but you know what? I really, really enjoy a good movie. It really disconnects me. And I love my walks. I listen to audiobooks. And now I broaden my horizon. I don't only do business books. I do a lot of light listening, little love story books and things like that. And I quite enjoy it. So I think it's just disconnecting from the world is so nice sometimes.
Well, but there's also disconnecting from work, right? So with the power of the phone now, like you can literally be on call 24/7. And so one of the best bits of advice I got back in my corporate days, leading a Canadian team, someone said, well, get a personal phone. I said, what? And they said, that's what I do. Like, the end of the workday, I turn off my work phone. It goes in the desk drawer. And then in the evening, if I'm interacting with friends, family, personal accounts, then do that on the personal phone, but have a clear divide between the two. And I remember going on a vacation and leaving the work computer and the work phone at home and say, all right, you know what? I recruited highly capable people. You can manage without me. I'll check in with you in 2 weeks when I'm back, and totally unplugged. And it was probably one of the most liberating feelings of my life. So.
Wow. That's awesome. So in these times of evolving business cultures, What are your respective companies doing to normalize mental health issues? Shannon?
So, in our company, I don't know that we really had a clear open door discussion about mental health the way that we do now. It was interesting when I had a call with my team just to talk about how they were feeling and how they were doing. And the response was, could we make this a regular call? We actually just don't want to talk about business. We don't want to talk about anything else. We want to talk about what's going on in our lives and how we're feeling. And I had a speaker from CPSA that specialized in dealing with mental health and dealing with stress and coping skills. And everybody got something that they took away from that. But throughout the pandemic with Bell Let's Talk Day, we implemented an EAP program that we hadn't had before. And it's really also promoting the services that are within an EAP program. A lot of people have the idea that, well, I need to call if I'm feeling something. Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, they've got great wellness programs. I use the dietitian out of there. And it's really getting people to see that there's a lot more that you can get out of an EAP program. We're paying for it. So let's make sure that we're using it, because having a cooking class or some of those features that are part of that EAP program that you can leverage could actually help you deal with some of the anxiety or other things that are going on, or to Tom's point, help you just disconnect with the work life completely.
Yeah, nice. How about you, Judith?
We use Slack because we're quite remote. We have bi-weekly staff meetings. So we use Slack, and I have posted a really great resource there. It has all the links to a lot of really, really great assistance programs that are free for my team. And then also I have a business coach, and with my business coach, when we meet, we don't only talk about business, we talk about all around life. And sometimes all around life is just how we manage that stress, how we manage mental health. So I have brought in Vince to our staff meeting where we would talk about like how to handle stress. Like sometimes our biggest stress at work is, the weather. Maybe we have created some sort of damage in the customer's house or anything like that. We've broken something. So I always coach my team just to take time, take a breather. Once you have collected your thoughts, give us a call, and then we'll walk you through it. We're always here to help you. And that's what Vince is kind of encouraging. So it's been working out well. And I think in our line of business, we definitely have to have that, because people think we're just cleaners, but we're not just cleaners. We're definitely somebody who really cares and makes a difference in other people's lives, because we do something that they are not good at or they don't want to do, right? So.
Oh, Mike is asking, how much social media in a day? I missed it now.
It's too much.
Is too much from a time standpoint. Tom, do you want to address that?
24 hours. I don't know. It depends. I think how you use it. Is it periodic check-ins? Are you on it for long blocks of time? I think everyone has to manage that. For me, I don't watch the news on television or read a newspaper, but I'll consume news from some different social media outlets, like news feeds on Twitter or news accounts there. So it's to me it's hard to say. I think to the point where it becomes a preoccupation and it impacts your ability to do your work, then that's too much.
Could be problem. Shannon, how about you? You use social media quite frequently.
I do. And I spend too much time on there, according to my husband. So I definitely need to take a few hours less, but I think it's not just social media that we have to look at, it's screen time in general, because even if you are not on social media, but you constantly have your phone in your hand, then you're watching that phone. I remember hearing on business radio, they were talking about the dual screen and how, I said, that's crazy. People are watching something on the TV and their iPad. And then I realized, oh yeah, I do that every day, all day and all night, because I've got my phone in my hand and the TV's on or something else is on. And I know that for myself, that's one of my checkpoints that I know I need to start to manage a little bit differently.
So you're aware of it though? Like
I'm totally aware
and
of it.
you know when to shut it down, yes?
No, I'm learning that.
Okay. Okay. It's a work in progress.
Work in progress. You got to have a goal.
How about you, Judith?
But on that note, actually, my phone gives me a screen time, how much I spent every Sunday. So I always look at that. And if it's a declining percentage, I'm so proud of myself. So proud. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say, because I feel you, Shannon. I'm doubling definitely.
Yeah. Wow. So Amanda, to get back online here, Amanda, the University of Calgary has specific programs in place when it comes to mental health. Did you want to share your presentation?
Absolutely. I can share my screen, and please let me know that this is the right screen.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Thank you.
Excellent. So I have a very quick presentation here. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but here we go.
But there's lots of resources in here.
Yeah, there's lots of resources. And this is, I have focused on staff and faculty and the resources I'm sharing right now, but that does not mean like I said, we have a robust student support programs as well. So myself at the beginning, being the mental health consultant, I kind of talked a little bit about my role. Also a coach for leaders. I have had leaders reach out and say, okay, I have this situation in the workplace. I'm concerned about someone, or they've mentioned this, how can I, what are some strategies that I can do to engage and initiate a deeper connection with this person, and what would you suggest? So, so we do that as well. And then I'm part of a portfolio called Wellbeing Work Life within Staff Wellness. So there's a team of 2 now. We unfortunately did lose one member, but we're a hardworking team of 2. But we promote healthy practices, not only at the individual level, but also at the teams, the department, the faculty level. And this involves promotion of work-life balance resources and programs. We also have an EFAP, or an Employee and Family Assistance program. We use LifeWorks. So it provides, I love that, Shannon, you mentioned that it's not just for counseling. It's amazing how much resources actually available to an employee and family members to this program. And from fitness to relationship coaching to, Shannon, you mentioned nutrition coaching, sleep advising, all sorts of good things. We do have ability managers on our team as well, who manage and support, and work through the sick leave process, or WCB, or accommodation. Other resources. So I mentioned the campus mental health strategy. I can share the links. I think you already have this, but we can share the PDF. So these are all links. Yeah. And please feel free to, whatever ideas you have, and you would like to use some of those resources, we're absolutely okay with that. We're in the planning of a yearly collaborative event called You Flourish, to promote education and resources on mental health and resilience for the entire community, staff, students, faculty. Yeah. We've been blessed with the initiation this year of the U Calgary Recovery Committee, which supports recovery journeys of community members. In my team, we are chairing the Wellness Advocate program. So different teams have their wellness committees. So we support those wellness committees. We also do a program, Wellbeing Work Life, where we facilitate a program called The Working Mind. If any of you have heard through the Mental Health Commission of Canada, we are blessed to have Dr. Andrew Zito, 2 of the developers on our team, as Dr. Andrew Zito is the director of the campus mental health strategy, and Dr. Keith Dobson, who co-authored that program for us. So we provide that to both faculty, employees, and leaders. Additional ones, we have women, we have access to a full community. So Women's Resource Center, Faith and Spirituality Center, Student Wellness Service and Center, Graduate Students Association. We have a Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning, who are presently doing a summer teaching series. we work very closely with our EH&S team on programs such as harassment and violence awareness training. I work very much kind of in the, if we're looking at mental health along the continuum, I kind of work in that zone of, okay, what do we do when someone's in crisis? Who do we call? What does crisis look like? What does it feel like? How can we get folks to help as, as in as timely of a manner as possible? One document that I created was called Assisting a Colleague in Distress, and we created this similarly to another document called Helping Students in Distress. So they're very similar, but happy to share this if you guys want to use and adapt to your companies. I'm happy to share a link, but it's a guide on, okay, if we notice something, we notice that one of our employees, their behavior has changed, or we're concerned about them for X, Y, or Z. How do we ask about it? What are some strategies of, okay, I've noticed, how do I state my observation because I'm concerned about you? How do I support you? Where are some referral resources, and what are some strategies for follow-up?
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, and these are some other documents we just updated, but we're so happy to have. What are some common reactions after a critical incident? What if, gosh forbid, grief and loss happens, we lose people, right? And how can we support you and your team after, someone has been injured, or, or significant or trauma has happened, right?
Yeah.
What are those common reactions? How do we as a leader support our team through that critical incident? We have an impairment in the workplace, a leader's guides, some coaching strategies for that, and what to do when concerned about a well-being, an employee's well-being, kind of a pathway of, okay, how do we get to the right folks to support you and your team?
Wow.
There's quickly, that is not a list, but I hope that gives you kind of an idea. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's anything you guys would like to discuss, reach out.
We will be sharing all the links from the presentation, definitely, with everyone who has registered today. So basically, we're running down to the end, so this will be parting shots now. So mental health, mindfulness, matters of the brain seem to be a regular part of the narrative nowadays. So do you think that the stigma associated with mental health has diminished? Amanda, I actually would like to start with you, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. I would love to say so. I do believe so. I truly do. We see through conversations such as this, there's grassroots groups forming on campus. Leaders are engaging more in coaching and seeking awareness of how to create and support a psychologically healthy workplaces. We have colleagues reaching out to each other. Senior leadership sponsoring mental health events and mental health talks, and including mental health minutes into their team meetings and safety minutes. I do truly believe that the pendulum has started to shift. Nice. We do need to change a culture here. It's going to take time, but I do believe that pendulum is starting to shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So Judith, in terms of people coming to you with mental health issues, have you found people to be your coworkers, your employees? When it comes to sharing their mental health issues, do you find them coming forward more relaxed, in a more relaxed fashion?
I think it's still stressful to admit that you feel that something is wrong or something is not jiving. But I do feel that as leader, I need to create that environment so they feel more comfortable, because it is really hard. I mean, I struggle with hard conversations, and I consider this a hard conversation because you're opening yourself up and you're being vulnerable. And I really do think that what I can do is I can listen, and Amanda has talked about this before, that, she can give advice or anything like that. But I really do think that a lot of times just listening is such a big, where somebody opens up and you're there for them and you're not interrupting and you're just listening. So I think just being open, listening, and being kind is already a big effort on a leader's part. And I think as leaders, we need to educate ourselves as to what that looks like when an employee or a team member comes to you and they're struggling. How do you help? How do you assist?
Exactly. Shannon, do you think companies and organizations are doing enough to assist those who are suffering or potentially suffering?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's so much of enough yet, but I think there's far more awareness than there has ever been. And the stigma is not gone yet, but it seems like more and more organizations are working to try and get towards that. And I think leaders are starting to realize that we do need to be able to be vulnerable and lead by example and take those mental health breaks when we need them and tell people we're taking a mental health break. I'm stressed. I'm going to take a couple of days and here's what I'm going to do with my time. This is how I'm finding my happy. And, I think having those open, honest conversations is going to welcome people to actually open up themselves about what might be going on in their own lives.
Nice. How about Tom? Tom, when it comes to companies doing better in terms of mental health, anything you'd like to say to that? Suggestions?
Yeah, I thought a void was training frontline managers to recognize the signs of someone experiencing mental health issues. So maybe someone that's been in a manager's position for an extended period of time, they've maybe have experiences and they can recognize better, but especially a new manager, how do you differentiate between performance issues or someone that's struggling and need help and support? So I think companies could do a lot more that way. And then also, these been a strange couple of years. And then companies have been stressed financially too, but you got to still have opportunities for teams to come together. You have to incorporate some fun, and team building into those activities, or otherwise, the workplace could be an awfully bleak place. So it's, those are easy things to sacrifice because you see what the cost is, and it's hard to demonstrate an immediate return on investment. But to me, they've always been extremely important.
Thank you. So at this time, we've got a few minutes left. I'd like to address our participants here today. Does anybody want to share any kind of experiences they've had over the last couple of years and any coping mechanisms that have particularly helped them succeed? Does anybody want to address that?
I can a little bit.
Sure.
What has really, really worked for me is trying to reframe my mind. So I'll give you an example. I had a tough week last week. I had to fire 2 people. It's never fun, right? And then at the same time, we were having interviews in the office. It's like the total opposite, right? So I am coming back from firing 2 people, and then I am heading into the office where I'm going to meet new people. So I had to take a few minutes. I had to take a breather, and I had to reframe my mind that, I understand what had happened. I will definitely think about it and deal with it, and just to see how I could have done better, what had happened in that relationship. But now here's a new relationship that I need to focus on. So I really had to reframe my mind. So that kind of works for me. It sometimes might not be the best scenario. It can be like a little Pollyanna, but but it works for me. So
Shannon, do you have any advice you'd like to share with the audience today?
Yeah, I think just embrace those moments and find those opportunities, big or small, to recognize what changes you can make. It's kind of funny, a silly thing that I've noticed is when I've had too much coffee, if all of a sudden all day I'm drinking coffee all day, it's generally because I know I'm stressed and that's my go-to. So recognizing that I need to make sure that the kitchen here is always equipped with herbal teas. It was a small little change that we made, but I saw within our own team members and myself, that, okay, it's time to change that up, and people were welcoming that. So I think taking those little small nuances and recognizing that there's certain scents that can also help create that space. So I put a diffuser in my office because I know that through the pandemic, always being up and being on was exhausting. So, you know, having peppermint diffuser in my office helps get rid of headaches. It also just helps keep me energized. But it's that thoughtfulness. And I think taking those moments to be thoughtful in what you're doing can lead to a much happier environment.
How about you, Tom? Any advice?
Yeah, someone had mentioned, you know, kind of having conversations with employees that were more personally focused. And I'm thinking back to my past corporate days. I think that was one of the more powerful shifts we had, was to have two distinct conversations with employees. You know, one was the traditional, you know, looking at business metrics, performance, and talking about business issues. But the other one would be a separately scheduled conversation that you weren't going to address the business, but it was there to talk about the employee, you know, whether it was their personal development, whether it was their career goals, and then just really an open conversation. And then from there, or maybe all along, I always try to have time, one-on-one time with people, and especially back in the days of travel. So, and the one thing I was conscious of was, you know, we'd have some employees that were a long ways away from everyone. You know, a person managing Atlantic Canada that didn't have the same interaction with people from our company. So, you know, I'd make a point of traveling out there at least once every year and having a couple of work days, you know, with that individual, because it was important for them to feel connected, much more so than just a constant barrage of conference calls or video calls.
Yeah. Amanda, if there's one key takeaway that you hope people have from this session today, what would you say that is?
I would say show yourself kindness. You can't serve, none of us can serve from an empty vessel. Take some time to consider what good mental health feels like for you. You don't have to, you know, write a 5-page list of all the self-care activities you're going to start tomorrow, right? You know, go slow, consider what works for you, and consider that, you know, your team members have different, their dimensions of wellness are defined differently, and know that you are worthy of taking that time to feel well. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks. So we have a couple minutes. Does anybody on the floor, a part of our audience, are there any questions at all or any comments? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for their time today and your contributions to the conversations today. As a final thought, I just want to remind everyone that sometimes the seemingly happy, confident people can be the ones hurting the most. So please be open-minded and kind, because sometimes the smallest gestures can make a world of difference. Again, this is going to be part one of a part two. There will be a part two in the next coming months, where we're going to have a special guest from the Canadian Mental Health Association. So please keep an eye on your emails for that. And in the meantime, please feel free to join us on August 24th for the next session of Coffee Talk Forum. And we will see you again. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you, Tanya. Great job.
Thank you.